All right, everybody, welcome to Jersey Shore Women in Tech. A little bit about us. Let me move this out of here. So Brittany and Allison are the co-founders, and they established this a couple years ago now, when they saw, a need to build a community and bring women together, and the supporting people that want to help mentor and educate and just ultimately help women succeed. Brittany is a software engineering manager at Vidya and a colleague of mine. And Allison is a senior product management lead at Define Logic. And I also work with Brittany as the SVP of operations at Vidya. So established in 2017, like I said, this event was inspired after another Women in Tech event occurred, and the need to kind of have something that was ongoing and developing deeper was something that the co-founders thought would be great. And then in 2018 was the first networking event where we just had like a mixer and all got to meet each other and see who else is in the community that we were building. In 2019, I came on as the executive director. The background on me is I was one of the first speakers of the organization. And then I was just completely thrilled to listen to all the other speakers that we have kind of share their perspective and help us all upgrade our skill sets and kind of see different parts of business that we might not have access to, in our own little worlds. Our mission is to support, educate, and mentor and develop a network of women in the information technology industry. We are focused on building and maintaining a local community that will fulfill the needs of women in tech, both personally and professionally. We also have a community outreach program that we're doing, and we're very passionate about trying to get younger girls involved into tech and interested early on and giving them the resources they need to kind of spark that interest. So we work with the Asbury Park High School and junior high school to help send girls to coding camp and robotics camp. Also, we invite everyone to be welcome, mentors, sponsors. As much as it's great to have female support, we know that it's very important to have support of our male colleagues as well. So we encourage you to invite whoever to join us and support the community. If you're looking to follow us, we're on all these different socials. The best place to find us is on Facebook. If you like our Facebook page, there's also a Facebook group that you can add. And inside it's private, and we have several different kinds of discussions. We invite everyone to share, whatever's important to them. If you guys are getting promoted or gotten a raise, we love celebrating anything and any reason that you have. If you have suggestions for other meetups or workshops, or you're speaking at an event that's not ours, but you think would be valuable to this audience, we absolutely support the fact that you guys want to bring that to the community. If you see relevant articles or blogs, information, whether you want to start a discussion or you just think it would be valuable information to share. Of course, if you are looking for a job or you're looking to hire, we obviously want to give visibility to those opportunities. And often, we all come across different times where we need advice or some perspective on something. So if we don't have a meetup that you can attend, as we know everyone's lives are very busy, leveraging that Facebook group is a great resource. Anyone is welcome to apply to speak. We source different talent and subject matter experts and leaders in our community, mostly from our network. If you know somebody that would be a great speaker for our community, or there's a subject that you are particularly interested about, or someone that you think would be just a great speaker in general, either have them apply on our website, jerseyshorewomενintech.com, or you can send them to me and Brittany or Allison, and we can reach out to them ourselves. We are here because of our sponsors. They support us in keeping the lights on, aka Zoom, running, and when we get back in person, having that space and bringing some sort of snacks and stuff like that to help continue to bring us together. So CoWorks has expanded their space. We usually meet in the Asbury space, but they also now are in Red Bank. It has a multi-purpose professional space, so you can sit in the open office, or they have rentable private offices as well. And all that information is also in the newsletter that we send out after each event on how you can contact them. And then Vidya is the other one. So Brittany and I both work there. Vidya is a music and media tech company located at Bellworks campus in Homedale. And Vidya powers the business behind music labels and media companies through an all-in-one platform that allows users to manage content, rights, payments, and view reporting on analytics and revenue. We have a bunch of positions open right now. The biggest one that we have been focusing on and interviewing for is a senior data engineer and a mid-level data engineer. I'm also looking for a head of people operations, so an HR professional. If anybody knows anyone that's looking or interested, please reach out to myself or Brittany. So the reason we're all here tonight, I want to introduce Maya Brooks, who's an award-winning product manager, educator, speaker, and entrepreneur. She is currently the senior product manager and startup coach at IFundWomen, which is a go-to funding marketing place for women-owned businesses and all the people that want to support them with access to capital, coaching, and connections. So with that, Maya, I will pass the mic over to you and take us away.
Thanks so much, Jenna, and to the whole Jersey Shore Women in Tech group for having me. I'm super excited. I've got my dual screens running today, so I'll be able to see the chat. So if at any point during the presentation anyone has a question they want to ask before we get to the open Q&A, feel free to throw that in chat. I'm always happy to clarify or share something. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. And Jen, if you can confirm, can you see it? We're all good.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So hi, everyone. I'm super excited to talk a little bit more about building and funding your tech startup. It sounds like we have a lot of awesome ideas that I heard during the intros today. So I'm really excited to dig a little bit deeper into everyone's personal startup journey and talk a little bit more about the funding landscape and what exactly that looks like, how to find your place within it, and then how to get the right funds at the right time for what you're building. So click through over here. All right. Again, this is what we're here to learn: building, funding your tech startup, etc. I don't want to spend too much time on me because I feel like I'm very easy to find on the interwebs. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about myself and stuff. I rather talk about the most important parts of the workshop today. But here's a little bit about me. I'm a senior PM at IFundWomen, which, as Jenna mentioned, is the go-to startup funding marketplace for women-led businesses. And I'll talk a little bit more about IFundWomen and what we do as we go through and how we can support you if you have a business. But in the meantime, feel free to follow me, all that good stuff. I'll share my intro at the end, my information at the end for anyone who wants to get in touch. All right, so let's talk about the funding landscape just in general, especially for women. Here is the funding problem, and this is why we started IFundWomen. There were last year in 2020, over $150 billion of startup capital, venture capital given out. Women-led startups received only 2.2% of that. So the funding gap is pretty large, especially for women entrepreneurs. For women entrepreneurs of color, especially Black and Latinx founders, that gap is even larger. Black and Latinx founders received only 0.64 of the entire venture capital pie in the year 2020. And in case you were thinking maybe this is a down year because of the pandemic, not the case. Everybody was raising money. In 2020, the funds were out in full force, and it doesn't look at all like there was a sinking in the amount of venture capital dollars that are out there in the marketplace. So during this presentation, one of the things I'm going to be talking about is the venture capital landscape in general, whether or not that might be right for you as a funding option, and then some other options that we can consider, whether you're pre-product, post-product, etc. So again, IFundWomen is here to solve that funding gap problem. We offer access to capital through crowdfunding and grants, as well as expert business coaching for women-led businesses. If you need money, we got you. If you need skills, we got you. If you just need a group of people to commiserate with, we got you. So I'll circle back to ways you can get involved with IFundWomen at the end of today's session. But agenda-wise, we're really going to focus on the funding landscape, building traction for your business, which is super important if you are looking to get funding. Some pre-product funding options. So what you can do if you are in the ideation phase and you don't quite yet have a product, there are definitely ways that you can still secure funding. So we'll talk about those things. building a low tech MVP, so our minimum viable product, how we get that out there in the market, and start to get customers and traction and maybe some funding as soon as possible. And then once you've got your product in market, post-product funding options and what's right at that stage. So I've boiled the funding landscape down to just two kind of like simple things. There's your money and there's other people's money. That's the funding landscape. Your money, other people's money. If you're not using your money, which is cash or sales that you make from the sales of your product, whether that's pre-sales, pre-orders, et cetera, then you are using other people's money. And that's angel investment, venture capital, loans from the bank, credit cards, grants, etc. And we'll talk about when it might be the right decision to use other people's money. I want to take a quick detour through venture capital. Like, if everyone can write in the chat, like, if you feel you are ready for venture capital or you're not sure. If you feel like you're ready for venture capital, write in that chat and say like, yes, I'm super ready. If you feel like I have no idea, I don't know what venture capital is, go ahead and say like, no idea, not sure. Great, okay. Awesome, maybe, okay, great. Okay, good to know. So let's take a little quick detour throughout venture capital, because I think this is a space that is super nebulous if you are not from a finance background or haven't worked at like a PE firm or like a VC firm before. The world of venture capital can seem really like confusing and just very nebulous. And then second, I think venture capital is the place where entrepreneurs get really hung up, like, oh, I must raise this money in order to get my product to the market, or if I don't raise venture capital, there's something wrong with my business or something. So let's talk a little bit about through this space and kind of what these things mean. So who are venture capital investors? Venture capital investors are people who are using the VC's fund money to invest in companies in exchange for equity. So every time they invest, they are getting a cut of the equity, or the fund is getting a cut of the equity. They are mostly known as billion-dollar unicorn hunters, right? They are after the company that's going to be the next Uber, Airbnb. They're looking for the next TikTok. They're looking for something that is going to have billions and billions of dollars in return for their fund. Generally, we like to say like venture capitalists are like the best gamblers in the world, right? They want to pick one out of like, they might invest in 10 startups. One of those they want to be a billion-dollar company, and everyone else they're kind of betting on failure for. So this is kind of like the mindset that they have when they're going into investing in companies. And then there's venture analysts and kind of like scouts, who are people who search for deals and maybe like are on the VC team. But if someone has the title of like venture analyst or a scout or something like that, they don't have any decision-making power in the firm. So this is a really important like point to make in terms of who you're speaking with. If you are interested in taking venture capital and you're interested in working with a VC firm, if you meet with someone who's an analyst or a scout, they probably have no decision-making power. So while it's good to meet them, you want to be escalated essentially up the chain to their boss. So in this kind of like general structure here, most VC funds are set up like this, where they have general partners in the firm and then limited partners in the firm. Limited partners in the firm are people who, not people, let me back up. Limited partners in the firm are corporations who decide to back X fund. So let's say I run a fund called like Maya's Venture Capital Firm or something. I want to go to Goldman Sachs or to JP Morgan or to Best Buy and say like, you guys should invest in my fund because my fund is going to make you better returns than you've ever gotten, right? So I'm promising them that if they give me money, I'm going to disseminate that money in my firm. And then those startups that I invest in are going to make some money, kick it back to me, and I'm going to kick it back to them. So the limited partners are like those big corporations. The general partners are people who are owners of the venture capital firm. So these are the people who actually like own the firm. They may not be active investors necessarily in the firm, but they own the firm and they get what we call carry or carried interest, which is a percentage of interest that the fund makes on each of the companies that they invest in. Most venture capital funds have to kick money or management fees up to the venture capital firm, which is owned by the general partners. So the structure is like, you're saying is getting like a little bit wonky, but basically the fund has to pay management fees to the firm who owns it. And then each of the companies has to pay portfolio company fees to the venture capital firm as well, on top of the equity that they've given to the venture capital fund in exchange for the capital. So there's a lot going on here. It is a complicated structure because of this. There are some pros and cons of getting VC if you are running a tech business. Pros of getting some VC. Money, 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 right? You're going to get money, you're going to get it quickly, you're going to be able to scale quickly, you're going to be able to invest that money. Your venture capital firm, if they are a firm that does well by its founders, they should be available for follow-on funding, so you can go back to them for your next round and your round after that. And they can also act as mentors, connectors, resources, etc. And it's a signal to the market that you have something of value. Cons of venture capital, which I think people talk about less, but I think it's important to know. Cons of venture capital, it's notoriously difficult to get venture capital. Anyone who's tried to raise before, if you are a founder and you've spoken to someone who's raised before, tried to raise before, they will tell you like it takes 3 to 6 months. They've met with hundreds of people. They've received several no's before they got a yes. It's a tiring process. It's a sales process, right? So everything that they're kind of going through in order to get this money, a lot of founders decide like, hey, it's not worth it for me to waste 3 to 6 months trying to raise money. I'd rather spend 3 to 6 months building the product, or I'd rather spend 3 to 6 months getting co-founders or doing something else with that time. So it may not be the right fit for everyone. You give up equity in your company and likely board seats. So from the control perspective, this is something that I think is talked about a little bit less as well. Certain venture capital firms definitely have a heavier arm on their founders, and they restrict them from doing certain things, right? They might block a merger or an acquisition because they want you to hold out for the long game. So if you have a venture firm on board, know that like you will be taking direction from the people who give you the money. You'll also be held to some high growth goals with potential consequences if you don't meet them. Venture capital, the point of venture capital is for you to scale, grow, and grow quickly, right? It's for those like companies that we want to be unicorns. It is okay to build a company that's not going to be a unicorn. That is totally perfectly fine. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, I think. But if you are building the unicorn company and you are on that track, know that the growth goals are probably going to be to triple in the first year, triple in the second year, and double in the third year in terms of revenue, size, customers, etc. So it's going to be a very, very, very quick growth formula for every company. That may not be what you want. That may not be the right choice for your company. So it's important to know. And like I said, every company isn't the right fit for VC. So can you scale a company if you don't use traditional venture capital? Yes. 100%, and Drew says yes. 100% you can scale if you do not use traditional venture capital. Here's a bunch of companies who have done it and who have built wonderful companies, especially companies that are a little bit in like the less traditional space. MailChimp is famous for doing this, the CRM like email system. They bootstrapped very early on in the beginning, and then their product was so successful they kind of really didn't need the venture capital. And they've really been staunchly opposed to taking any. I've heard their founder, Brian Chesky, speak a ton, or no, he's Airbnb. I will remember who MailChimp's founder is. But yes, a couple of other companies, Purple, which is the mattress company, Spanx by Sarah Blakely, consumer product company, SurveyMonkey, right, research company, Linda, EdTech. So you can see kind of like the range of companies that go on to be super successful without doing the traditional VC route. So I want everyone to really like ask yourself after hearing this, do you need VC? And continue to ask yourself this throughout like your funding journey. As we segue out of like this VC section, kind of talk about some other options and what else you might need to build your company. So if you are considering raising any type of money, when do you need to do that? Or when are you maybe ready to raise VC? All the way over here on the right, this is the place. Undeniable traction. That's the place where we're ready to raise VC. If we are in any of these other phases, we're not there yet, and that's okay. First, when we're building any company, we want to start out doing the idea, the research, and the discovery phase. So research, customer discovery, understanding the problem, really getting to the heart of why our solution might be a good fit for the people we are building our product for. We really want to stay in this stage kind of for a little bit. We want to do a ton of research. The research is never done. Any product people on the line probably are very familiar with this. The research is ongoing, right? It doesn't stop after like we did one survey and like now it's done, right? Like we're going to continue to talk to our customers, to understand the landscape, to ask them for feedback on our features, et cetera. Second, this is where you're going to business plan and kind of start to like think about your business model or your team. This is the stage where you're going to think about, okay, we've got a solution that we think works. How do we monetize it? What does that look like? Who do we want to charge and why? How can we start to make money? And who do I need by my side to build this business? And then third, you're going to build and launch your MVP. And we'll talk a little bit through at some MVP options. If you don't have a product in market yet, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, like I said, once our MVP is marketed and out in the market and it's launched, we want to see undeniable traction. And then and only then should you approach a venture capitalist. So let's talk about pre-product funding, right? Those like first couple steps. I don't have a product yet. I have a great idea. Let's talk about helping you launch your product and kind of start to build that early traction. And some of the funding options you might have at that stage. I included this slide because I feel like lots of people get stuck in this like infinite pre-product loop where they're like, okay, I need like funding to build the product. And then they need traction to get the funding. And so they need funding to build the product, and then they need traction to build the funding, and they just like keep going around in this circle. We're gonna break this loop. We're gonna break this loop by focusing on some of our pre-product funding options, And I would be remiss if I didn't first talk about crowdfunding as an option. Crowdfunding is a really great option for pre-product startups. If you have a product or an idea and you want to know if other people are into it, or you need like 10 grand, 15 grand or something to get something out to market or get your MVP off the ground, crowdfunding is a really, really great option for that. Not only does it allow you to pre-sell your product or service, but it also allows you to kind of like have a marketing reason to gain customers, right? I've run a crowdfunding campaign before at IFundWomen. We help people run crowdfunding campaigns all the time to get their MVPs off the ground. It's a really great option for having like very little upfront cost to you to run a crowdfunding campaign, and then let people know about the product or service you're building. Let them fund it, right, with their dollars by buying one of your services or pre-purchasing one of your services or products. And there's lots of creative like rewards that you can do. There's also equity crowdfunding, which requires a little bit more of a sophisticated business in order to do, but equity crowdfunding platforms are available. We work a lot with Republic, which is a great equity crowdfunding platform for companies who want to give up equity in exchange for cash raised on the platform. Second option for pre-product funding, bootstrapping, right? And this can look like we're just taking our cash and we're putting it in the startup. That's the way a lot of people bootstrap. Some people get second jobs. Other people start to sell other types of items in order to bootstrap the business. So bootstrapping is always an option. Like I said, the founder of MailChimp has a really, really great story on bootstrapping your business. And I'll definitely like share some links to that. But that is also an option. Number 3, good old fashioned pre-sales / LOIs. So pre-sales, if you are on the product side, right, and you have like a physical product, a consumer good, a retail good, whatever it is, it's something that like you want to put out in the market that's not a service. Pre-sales is a great way to go, right? Get people on the wait list, get people to pre-order, get people to pre-purchase, like whatever they're doing in order to take part in your business. That is a great way to start like building an early wait list, proving traction, proving that you have a there. Awesome ideas. On the B2B side, let's say you're building like a SaaS company or something that's going to sell into another business. At this stage, what you can do is start to pitch strategic partnerships and gather what we call LOIs or letters of intent to purchase for your company. And those can be really great ways to prove later down the line to any investors or people you want to work with that there are interested parties in buying what you're selling. So another really great option here. And then last but not least, like credit and credit cards. I put this option last, and I'm going to not spend that much time on it because I don't want to encourage you to take out tons of debt to fund your startup. It's usually not a great idea. The amount of personal capital that you usually have to put up in order to secure that type of debt funding is not usually beneficial to a startup. And I've seen a lot of founders get into really sticky situations because of this. So I'm going to say probably stay away from the credit cards, but if push comes to shove, there are some really great companies out there that do startup funding for credit. I'm thinking about Clearbank, I'm thinking about Brex. Capital One has a great startup program for startup founders where you can get like a startup credit card that has an advance on like your inventory or something like that, and you can take a line of credit. So that's also an option. I'm going to pause real quick because I feel like I've done a lot of talking. Any questions so far on like pre-product options, etc.?
What do you find to be the most popular?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's a really great question. I'll say on IFundWomen, most people are crowdfunding or they've taken some credit card debt and we're trying to help them, pay that down or pay that off. But crowdfunding is a really popular option on IFundWomen specifically. In terms of the broader market of like, what do people do pre-product? I think I don't know. I don't have a number on that. But I assume that it's probably mixed between a crowdfunding or like pre-sales. Bootstrapping is an option if you have a lot of savings, which not everyone has. I know there are some founders who've taken their 401ks or got a second line on a house or done all sorts of things to fund their businesses. It's not always an option. So yeah, I'll caveat that. Anyone else like questions on this like pre-product space?
Hi, this is Alita. I have a question. As far as the pre-product space, is it recommended to have like at least a website of some sort for any of these options, or is it possible to do it without a website?
That's a great question, Alita. I always recommend having a website and social presence when you are starting up a business. It helps legitimize you in the space and give people a place to go to. If you're thinking of doing something like pre-sales or pre-orders or even a wait list, it's really great to just be able to launch like a landing page of some type. It doesn't have to be super involved, but just a landing page that says like, this is the name of the business. Here's our, like what we do. Here's our tagline, right? Or our pitch. And then here's a button to join our wait list. Does that help? Alita, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course.
I wanted to ask, what do you think is a good time frame to start the pre-sales, like the time frame or the gap between pre-sales and actually fulfilling the orders? And
That's a great.
I haven't really prepared it so much, but yeah.
Oh, that's
Like
okay.
I guess I anticipate, because I believe that I have something so amazing. But if you are not able to fulfill, or maybe you get way more orders than you anticipated, right? And I know that often that's the case with like crowdfunding. You don't expect so many orders to come in. So yeah, a little bit of advice on that, please.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great question. And
Thank
I'll say
you.
that transparency is key, right? As long as you are transparent about what it is you are building, doing, when someone can expect to receive something from you, usually people don't throw a fit about that as long as you're upfront. So if you're talking about a situation where you have pre-orders and then you get way too many and you're not able to fulfill them from a year from now, then the date that I would put on your reward like section, which is like, we're getting kind of granular to like the actual platform, but the date that I would put on your reward section would say like estimated delivery date like 2022 or something. So everyone knows, right? And then you'll keep your funders up to date. Like, hey, today we went to the manufacturer and this is what we got and this is what we did. And like, can't wait to get you those orders in 2022. Hey, everyone, like, look what we did today. We're doing such and such. And you'll continue to like update people to let them know like, A, you're not a fraud, but like B, you are working on like delivering those things and the money is going toward that. So I really think it's all about like transparency as a founder.
Okay, that does sound good. Would you recommend, or like, what if you to put a cap on for like the pre-sales? I know crowdfunding is like kind of take it, because I believe that's more of the first step, and then after you do crowdfunding, kind of funds the the goal, and then you'll take pre-orders. At least that's what I have in mind to do. Would you suggest a cap on pre-sales, like we're going to close this off at 1,000 units, or a specific number?
So that's really up to you as the founder. We have a lot of people who crowdfund and do the pre-orders through the campaign, including people who have opened physical spaces, people who have services, people who have physical products, all sorts of stuff. I think really like where it comes down to is, how is your cash flow situation and what do you need in order to produce the final good. We have a couple of templates that we use called the IFundWomen method playbook that will kind of guide you really like through making those decisions, and through like identifying what are my costs, like when could I feasibly deliver this, if I get money like or cash on this date, how much money do I need in order to place the order. So I'm not sure exactly what your business is yet, but I'm happy to learn more like post the workshop and we can talk.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Of course. And Gabrielle, I see a hand.
Yeah, so how is the process different when what your startup will be based on is like an app where you don't really, so when it's an app, how's the process different?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am of the mindset actually that an app or a tech product is not different. You are still going to get waitlist signatures. You're still going to have pre-orders, what am I trying to say? You will not be delivering something physical, but you will still be like kind of like taking a wait list of what it is people want to engage in with the tech product or the app. The best example of this is something like a Dropbox, right? Dropbox famously did like a video tutorial of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could take all these files and like share them like this and then open them up on this other computer? The product did not exist. It was literally just a like video tour of what Dropbox could be. And they got every basically like business manager, product manager, person who was interested in like sharing files like that. They got a wait list of like tens of thousands of people. And so if you have a tech product, you're going to go through like a similar process where you want to make something that has really high demand with the people that you want to talk with. And in terms of crowdfunding, there are people who offer all sorts of rewards. Rewards don't have to be directly related to the business that you're running. So if it's a tech app or something, and you may not be able to offer like, you know, pre-downloads or something like that. You can also do something like using your superpower, right? And allowing people to buy your hour of time or whatever your superpower is through your crowdfunding campaign, and then use that money to fund the app, right? So like if I'm building an app and my superpower is like, hey, I'll give you an hour of resume help for $50, then that's my reward, right? If you buy an hour of resume help from me, then I get $50 and I'll put that $50 toward my app. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna keep moving through, but loving these questions. Feel free to continue asking and all of that good stuff. Okay, so let's talk like building a low tech MVP, right? Like let's say you were on like one of these areas and you did the idea and you got the research and the discovery and you've been working on your business model and your plan and all that sort of stuff. And now you're at the place where you want to start launching your MVP and you're not exactly sure like how to build that or what that could look like. There are lots of ways to build what we call a low tech MVP. What's an MVP? An MVP is a minimum viable product or prototype. I like to say prototype because I think sometimes product makes people nervous. A minimum viable prototype. It does not need to be technical. Even if you are building a tech product, it does not need to be technical. Your goal with an MVP is to build, measure, learn, repeat. Build, measure, learn, repeat. That is all you're going to do. You're going to put this out into the market and you're going to deliver real value to customers. And from that value, you're going to learn what's working, what's not working, what are they saying they want, what are they saying they don't need, what are they engaging with, what are they not engaging with, etc. This can be anything as simple as like a landing page, a simple website or tool. This could be like a form that people fill out. You could leverage a video demo like we talked about earlier. You could physically get on the phone and do the service that you are planning to automate, right? And just do it kind of like manually and make it seem like it's automated behind the scenes. So there are lots of ways to build an MVP. Again, the goal is just to make sure that you're learning from that experience. And I'll give an example. Airbnb, when they were first launching their product, of course, did not have like a formal Airbnb website and all of that sort of stuff, but they would just broker on behalf of two people like, hey, do you have an apartment that's open and you're looking for someone? We got someone who will sleep there for a couple of dollars a night. Like, do you want to do this? And they would just broker the deal, right? And what you learn from a process like that is, what are people looking for? What do they need to know up front, right? What do they need to know on the back end? How do you exchange money? What are people willing to pay for a space like that for a night, right? And so they would just go to different tech conferences and they would help people find housing in like locations. So super small, right? They weren't focused on everybody in the market. They weren't focused on everyone they ever met ever. They were only focused on a really small percentage of people that they knew they could learn from and affect. And I think their first major like Tesla booking or something was like 5 or 10 people. So it wasn't that many people. But that's how you prove, right? Like, hey, there's a there there. People are willing to pay some money to sleep on somebody's couch. How do we make this into a thing? So that is still considered an MVP. I am a big fan of no code tools. So if you have a technical product or you want to build a technical product or you want to build something that feels slick and easy, I'm a huge fan of using like some no code tools that basically are like drag and drop things that allow you to mimic what a formal app or website or web app or chatbot might look like. And I encourage you all to get really creative about what you think like the MVP can look like, right? Especially for services and things like that. I see chatbots work really, really well in that space where someone's like, oh, I want to do a service where, you know, let's take ClassPass, for example. Let's say you want to build something that's kind of like ClassPass where, you know, I book your gym classes, you know, once a week for you, and I just find the best time available and I go ahead and do the booking, right? And maybe all you need to do is give me the information. there's a couple of ways I could do that. I could have a form and I could take your information. I could have a chat bot and have you interact with the chat bot, and then I go manually book the class for you, right? There's lots of ways to kind of like get that done. But again, the whole point is that you're going to be just like learning. So I'm pretty sure that you all will get the deck after this, and feel free to like dig deeper into any of these specific tools. There's also another slide here of like more helpful tools where you can like, let's say, integrate or zap. Zapier is one of like my go-to favorite tools, where you can integrate a couple of different tools with each other. So you can say like, if customer says this, then charge them this, then do X, then put the calendar invite here, then send them an email for blah, 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 right? So you can kind of automate like lots of free tools together and make something that feels like a real product. Okay, so now that you've built a product, I'm just keeping time with enough time. Now that you've built a product, it's time to start thinking about like post-product funding options, etc. So post-product funding options can look like loans, they can look like grants, they can look like accelerators or incubators, which is one of my favorite places to send new founders, is like, hey, do an accelerator, do an incubator program. Those are great places to keep testing out your product market fit, right? Making sure that your product is really what people need in the space. Making sure that you have the support via the accelerators, like mentors and investors and stuff, people in there who really want to help you. You get kind of like an extended period of time really just to keep trying things out. So these are really helpful things. And then last but not least, angel or venture capital, which we already talked about. In terms of grants, I'll just caveat by saying IFundWomen has amazing grants that we broker with corporate partners on behalf of our entrepreneurs. So we do grants in a variety of areas, a variety of industries and focuses to help entrepreneurs get the funding that they need. Usually grants have a ton of criteria on them. So every piece of criteria you'll want to take like a super close look at. We do have some grants that we make available that don't require you to have like revenue goals or like, you know, numbers of years in business or things like that. But grants in general can be a really great space when you win one, but they can sometimes be really like difficult to find and apply for. So if you have any questions about that, IFundWomen is here to help, and definitely a great resource for that. All right, so before I talk about more about IFundWomen, I just want to kind of like roll back to this like MVP space. Does anybody have a question on like MVP, building one, post-product stuff?
I have a question. As far as building the MVP, I did build something, but it was through like 3D printing. And that was really pricey because it's a rather large product. So I wanted to know if you had any things that you feel, any other options besides.
So, Tara, can you tell me what your business is? Like, just give me
It's adult novelty.
Right, adult novelties, right, okay. And you built like a 3D printed product so that you could like demo it? Right,
yes.
And reiterate your question again around the MVP.
So my MVP, because it was 3D printed and I tried to be as, smart with the money, excuse me for the word missing, but to build it as cheap as possible, I had to divide the sections. So it's not necessarily functioning how it would had it been all built at once. And I find it very hard to find, somewhere here within the US, at least, that's not,
right,
that I wouldn't have to put a large order in kind of thing to build the molds and so on and so forth. So if you had any suggestions for.
And what's the smallest sample order that you can place?
The smallest sample, I haven't priced any. I just assumed that the sample orders would be. Matter of fact, it wouldn't be, but it would come from China, and then I would have to disclose my product to, well, that's my assumption. I would have to disclose my product to China, and I'm not really trusting that at the moment. I would rather, you know, when I roll it out, I want it to be as legit or covered, IP protected as possible.
Okay. So I'm hearing a couple of things. I'm hearing that you're worried about like the IP getting stolen while you're creating the product. Okay.
So I mean, just don't want to put it at risk, you know. I want to be as cautious as possible.
I feel you. I want to address this in kind of like a broad stroke question, a broad stroke point. And this is not going to be applicable to all businesses, but I hear this often, and so I want to say this. Having IP protection, copyright, trademark, patents, etc., are only as helpful as you are willing to enforce them. So what I want to avoid is anyone feeling like they can't put their product out in the marketplace or start to build it or start to do it, etc., until they have some sort of legal protection. I almost guarantee you, you will be waiting like years. And then after you waste lots of money, it will be very difficult for you to really enforce anything real, unless like you want to drop millions of dollars on lawyers to fight IP in China. I don't think that you want to do that. I don't think most people want to do that with their startups. So here's the advice I'm going to give everyone: like, worry not about the competition or somebody stealing your stuff, etc. When you are building a business, it is all about you and the execution and your mission and how fast you can get to market with the thing that you are building. I think in general, yeah, I would like everyone to like let go of that fear. So like, let's all like take in a deep breath and like let go of the fear of that happening. I also almost guarantee you that like at some point somebody will steal your idea. That's probably true. Somebody probably will steal your idea and they will copy it and they will make a cheap knockoff. And there's like little that we can do about that. It's more important for us to be diligent about what we are creating, be focused on it, be very focused on customer acquisition, selling our story, etc. So I want you to like let go of that fear. I know you're in like a special space because you're kind of in like products, like proprietary hardware like product, which is very difficult. So you may want to like speak a little bit more with a lawyer, particularly for your case, Tara. But I still kind of come down on like, if that's the thing that's blocking you from like getting some samples and like some quotes from a manufacturer, like go ahead and do it. I don't want that to like stop you from doing anything. Is that kind of helpful?
That does help, and I totally agree. I guess my thing is just having my ducks in a row. So this information that I have here, you know, sets up the next step so that when I do eventually send out that for a sample, it's like, okay, well, you know, Maya told me it was funding is next, you know, so I'd have my ducks in a row. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and I would love, like, I think for you, Tara, we have a couple of people, actually, a lot of sex tech companies on the IFundWomen platform who've raised money because they couldn't raise money like out in other places because sex tech is like taboo. But I think a lot of people have found real success in crowdfunding because what you're really doing is like asking your community who follows you and who you've built a relationship with, right, to support your business. And again, your rewards could be the actual product, but it could be something completely different. It could be like, hey, like I also teach, you know, sexual intimacy courses, and I can teach these courses, you know, for $150. And those are like the things that you offer as your rewards, right? Or you offer some sort of other things. Maybe you have other products. Maybe you sell a lube. Maybe you sell like something else, right? That kind of like has to do with the same like type of industry before you gear up to that product. So I think there are some options in order to at least get like some money so you can produce the first one.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you so much. I definitely have to come up with some other products because that was going to be my initial product, which I don't think that's such a good option, you know, but I will take your advice. Thank you.
Awesome, I'm glad I could help. I see a hand on, can I read your name?
I think it's Corinne.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Corinne?
Yep, sorry, I'll take my hand down. You mentioned strategic partnerships, and for my product, which is a web-based application for healthcare and education, I've had a couple higher education institutions continue to tell me that they're interested, but due to COVID, we're kind of rolling into next school year or the next year over and over, but they continue to take my emails, my calls, all of the things. They just keep punting it down the line. I have zero idea how to structure a strategic partnership, particularly with higher education and or healthcare. And then aside from that, even just securing that letter of intent would be super helpful at this point. I've demoed the product for them and all of that, but again, we're just kind of on hold with the PPP, the whole, world's kind of being, they're very nervous because they've been spending so much of their budget on the physical components, yet they know they need this tech component. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So with SaaS platforms where you're trying to form a strategic partnership, my usual piece of advice here is when you do the initial demo, and I know you said you've demoed several times, you have some inroads. When you do the initial demos, usually I incorporate a slide, or I encourage founders to incorporate a slide at the end that has pricing on it, but that has a steep discount to get the person to sign an upfront LOI. So what the ask will look like is, hey, I'm the founder of, what's the name of the company, Corinne? Corinne, what's the name of your company? Oh no. Okay, so with that, am I frozen?
No, Corinne, I think if you're talking, you're on mute.
Okay, so what that will look like would be like, hi, I'm the founder of Corinne's company. We want to pitch you, blah, blah, blah. Here's how my product will benefit your space. We know you need this. Let's work together to meet your goals, such and such. And at the end, it will say, for a trial run for a year of our product, we charge a licensing fee of $100,000. But because you're one of our first customers, we're going to do a 3-month trial for you for free. And then if you like it, we'd like you to re-up at the end of that 3-month period. Does that sound okay? Let's sign today.
Gotcha. I lost, unfortunately, out of this entire time, my internet while you were talking. And so the last thing that I had heard was a slide on the product in the demo, and I can circle back with you after, but I just came back online. My Zoom just restarted.
That's okay.
So I apologize to everyone if this is redundant.
No, that's okay. I said something really brief, so I'll just repeat. Basically, what I want the pitch to look like, and Corinne, I'm definitely happy to talk a little bit more with you about this. What the pitch would look like would be, hey, company X, we've been working with you over the past 6 months to make sure that this is a platform that is really right for you. Here's the value that we're going to offer you, blah, blah, blah. In order to, set this up for the next year, we charge a licensing fee of $100,000. But for you, since you're one of our first customers, we'd like to do a 3-month trial run with your company. We're going to take the onus of setting up all the XYZ, doing the integrations, blah, 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 right? All that stuff. And as a thank you, we're going to offer you 3 months free on our $100,000 contract. And we'd hope that you re-up at the end of the 3 months. If that's the case and you really like the product, can we sign the contract today? And that's like the type of sales close that you're going to do with this type of company. We can definitely talk more about that in terms of companies who are really interested in working with you and they're honestly interested in the product. They should have no problem signing a contract that is temporary and that really costs them very little money. As long as you are really taking on the onus of hey, we want to make this as easy as possible for you. It's not going to cost you a ton of time or implementation or people or any of that sort of stuff while we set it Say on
That's awesome, because that's exactly what that's what I've been missing, a couple large universities here in the Midwest. And when I cold call, I'll get through, have these conversations, and they're like, yeah, our budgets are spent because of COVID, the practicality of being in and out of institutions. So it's been an interesting road. And I find it encouraging because they keep answering my phone calls and they keep responding to my emails, and everyone keeps coming back, but I can't get anything in writing, and I'm coming towards the end of my budget. I've been, bootstrapping. You talked about, credit card stuff, and I'm like, oh, should I go there? Crowdfunding, all this good stuff. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that idea of, hey, we'll take it on for you at the beginning of, this school year, this, quarter for billing for healthcare.
Yeah, and I'll add just like 2 more things, right? After you get like those first 3 or 4 like business customers, that's really all you need in order to get into like a great accelerator, right? You approach that accelerator, and when they ask you like, do you have traction? You say, we have 3 LOIs with like companies that, are making this much in revenue. We expect to, be re-upping with them again. That's a great point, to apply to that accelerator. Get the accelerator funding during the time that you're in that program, and then use the accelerator resources and investors to get more clients as you're moving forward. And as you graduate that program, you'll be like really primed for venture capital if that's what you decide to do post that. But on the other hand, and I just want to say this for anyone who's like continually getting no's or like maybes or like soft no's from someone, soft no's are not helpful. Soft no's are not helpful at all. I'd rather have a quick yes or a quick no. Soft no's, not helpful. So what I will try to do usually, especially if I'm working with a company who is trying to get venture capital or something, and they're saying, yeah, like the investor said they're really interested, but they're giving me the runaround for like 6 months. I've been talking to this person for 6 months and it's not going anywhere. Here are like the sentences you're gonna say. You're gonna say, hey, like, I heard, let me give like a real life example. Let's say like Jenna has a company and it's called, let's say it's called like NJ, Jersey Shore Women in Tech, right? So Jenna is trying to get funding for Jersey Shore Women in Tech. I'm an investor, and Jenna is like, hey, will you guys invest in the company today? Here's all the great things we're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just not sure that like the business model fits, or I don't know. I'm just not sure that like you all have the team that's like, that we need, or I'm just not sure that like this is a fit for the space, blah, blah, blah. I want to push the investor. Jenna wants to push me, the investor, to like a quick yes or a quick no either way. So she's going to ask some probing questions. And those probing questions look like, I hear that you're saying you feel like my team is not the right team to move forward with this. Is there a hire that you'd like me to make if I decided to hire an extra salesperson, or if I decided to hire an extra blah, blah, blah? Would that change your mind? Would you be willing to invest today? Now, what that does is set the investor up for like having to put them on the spot now, between them actually saying, yeah, that would change my mind. I've been waiting for you to say that you would hire an extra person, or no, that wouldn't change my mind because I have more excuses for why I don't want to invest in your company. If the investor doesn't want to invest, don't push them to, move on. Your time is more valuable and spent better somewhere else. But it is helpful to know like why they don't want to invest if they really are trying to say no to you and they're just being polite. Like, politeness is really not helpful in the venture capital world. So I'll give like another example. There are people who say like, oh, I'm really, I'm interested in the company, but I just don't see, enough like customer acquisition. I'm really not sure that you guys are going to be able to do that and hit your growth goals in the next year. Then you say, I'm hearing that you're a little bit worried about our customer acquisition strategy. Is that something that you'd be willing to help sit down with me on and go through? And if we can prove that we can hit 10,000 customers in the next year, would you be willing to invest today? Or would that be something that like, you would be willing to give me some mentorship on? Do you have a resource that can get me some customer acquisition? In fact, we've been wanting to strategically partner with one of your other portfolio companies. Why don't you get me that intro, and then that will really accelerate our customer funnel. If that accelerates our customer funnel and we can hit our goals in the next couple of months, would you be willing to invest today? And if the answer is still like, no, I don't know, I'm not sure, I just not a fit, like blah, 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 then like let it go. It's not for you.
I had one more question. I'm getting similar kind of feedback from some of these universities as well as school districts that, hey, if we just had this one more feature, or can you add this feature? And the optionality to add those features, some of them are definitely doable. Others obviously are going to take a lot more work. Is that, how do you negotiate, I guess, and I don't want to, monopolize the time, but how do you negotiate? It's kind of the same concept, right? So how do you negotiate that in terms of landing the contract with, those caveats?
That's a great question. And I am not a strategic partnership guru. However, as a product person who's been in a lot of sales-led orgs, I'll say that it happens often that the sales team has to promise something to a partner or to an enterprise or to a company that then we have to go back and build because it's already been promised, and unfortunately the revenue is hanging in the balance in order to do that thing. I think that it's a very nuanced conversation, and it's part of the negotiation that you'll have to do with the company. You might be able to say hey, a feature like that, 100% would see the value, we can definitely include that. Other features might be we don't have the bandwidth or capacity to do that right now, but if you want to sign the contract today, that will allow our team more bandwidth to blah, blah, blah. Or if you'd like to do this, as a long-term deal with us, that's going to cost you X amount of dollars as a part of your contract in order for us to remit that feature for you. And just kind of throw it back to them, you guys have to pay for this, but sure, we can build it if you need to pay for it. But there is a really delicate balance between stuffing your product full of stuff that the company asks for and making a really valuable product. So if it helps Corinne to have someone else also in the room, even someone who's a technical advisor, maybe someone who's not even on your actual tech team, but somebody who's on who's in your corner and can say we really want to make sure that we're offering your company the best value for what you're getting from our contract. I'm not sure that this feature is actually going to solve what you want, but let's have future conversations about what it is that you do want from our product. And let's try to make that happen. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't help more, but that's my answer.
Thank you so much.
I'm not sure whose hand is next.
I think it was Amy.
Amy, what's up?
Hi, yeah, this is all really, really helpful, so thank you. Similar to Corinne, I also have a web-based application where a nonprofit tech startup around clinical trial space and bringing it to patients. And we also need a lot of strategic partnerships, other disease advocacy organizations, et cetera. But my question is more around, you mentioned accelerators. And so are there any that you suggest or you're aware of that would be good to look into?
Yeah, definitely. Amy, what industry are you in?
So in, I guess, health tech, science tech industry.
Yeah, definitely. So there are tons and tons and tons of accelerators, literally so many. I have a whole database of accelerators that we share on IFundWomen, and I'm definitely happy to give you. In terms of ones I recommend, I'll be a little bit biased and say that since I'm from kind of the Techstars world and spent some time in their FinTech accelerator, that they're the accelerator program I recommend most often. They are one of the largest worldwide accelerators. They have programs in every industry, basically in every single city. It's very easy to find them. And on their website, you can filter which industry you're in and which city you kind of want to work with, et cetera. So I really like Techstars for that. In addition to that, they have smaller class sizes than something like a Y Combinator. So you'll actually have a little bit more one-on-one mentorship with your program MDs who are also investors and the investors that come in and out of the program. That being said, obviously Y Combinator is kind of the big dog in the space. They are a great program. I don't have anything against them. So I would definitely check out something like them. I'd also check out a mass challenge. Mass Challenge is a great accelerator, and because they're located in Boston, Mass, they have a bunch of connections to the health universities there, and all of like the hospital systems there. So that's a really great option if you are specifically looking for health tech. What else? Those are just like the few off the top of my head. Plug and Play Ventures, which is also a pretty like large accelerator program and has a bunch of stuff. And then there are like corporate accelerators that are run by like corporates, like Target has one for like CPGs, right? Whole Foods has one for like food products, all that sort of stuff. So I would definitely just like take some larger looks into like into health tech, like accelerators. It's definitely a hot space. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, I'm gonna move through a couple more of these slides and then we'll circle back to the rest of the question.
Can I ask you quick, may I ask, do you have any physical products, incubators or accelerators that you?
Yep, those exist. There are a bunch
within the field, almost, that would touch it?
Yeah, what do you mean that will build?
I said within my field, within my industry.
I have not quite seen a sex tech accelerator, but I have seen a lot of like consumer goods accelerators, which is probably like where I would put that, like consumer hardware, maybe, yeah, like digital futures, sometimes Internet of Things, like depending on what you're doing with the actual product. So yeah, probably like wiggle room.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about like building the product. Now that we've built a product and we've gone through our post-product funding options, when do you come to IFundWomen? So if you're interested in learning more about IFundWomen or you need our help, here's when you might need our help. If you're starting a business and you need funding, we gotcha. If you're starting a business and you need coaching or mentorship, we gotcha. If you are starting a business and you just want to connect with entrepreneurs and kind of like talk things through, you want to work with partners, maybe you want to do like content swaps and stuff with other people. We have a great community of other entrepreneurs that you can talk with. If you want to fund women entrepreneurs and just support kind of like the female funded economy, definitely IFundWomen is for you. I fund stuff all the time. And get like, you know, the rewards, which are like really cool products and stuff that we see coming out of IFundWomen. So definitely great for gifting, great for kind of like niche, cool stuff. So it's a really awesome opportunity there. Or if you have a company that wants to fund women entrepreneurs, so if any of you are a part of a company, a larger corporate that wants to do something specifically for women entrepreneurs, or it's aligned in their mission to have that sort of impact, we're all ears. And you can get started with us just by going to ifundwomen.com/get started. And that will kind of take you through a journey where you'll find out like what are the next steps that you should be personally taking in your business and how we can help. So thank you all for this lovely presentation. I know it's like 7:50, so we have about 10 more minutes left. But I'm really glad that you were all here and hope we got a lot out of it.
Thank you.
That was phenomenal. So I know that people definitely have some interest. So if you guys, you know, want to unmute and go ahead and ask your questions, now's the time.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Alita again. I am what I'm going to call a low tech founder, and I've been desperately seeking a higher tech co-founder, and I'm wondering what are the best resources / options for meeting and finding tech founders that are looking for that low no tech founder.
Yeah, totally. That's a really great question. What I might, yes. This is my contact info. Yes, in terms of wanting to find a tech co-founder, I think there are a couple of ways that probably you can do this. There are, yeah, I'll speak to this first way first. So I'm a graduate of General Assembly, Software Engineering Bootcamp. And I have seen people utilize boot camp grads so often as new founders. It is a really, really great way to get kind of like some cheap or free labor for people who are just graduating and probably still in between, like looking for their first job. So if you need like a software engineer, if you need a product person, if you need a UI person, like I would hunt on those bootcamp training grounds. That's one of my favorite places to look for like co-founders, freelancers, people who like are just interested in like doing projects and helping people. Like people do that all the time. What you want to have in order to make that project compelling is like a clear idea of what it is you'd like to do, what it is you'd like to build, and why. And I'd say that that's probably the thing that you want to approach this like boot camper with, right? Or any potential co-founder with, is like, hey, this is not just like an idea in my head. This is like, you know, stuff that I've researched and like done a lot of work on and put a lot of time into. And I'd love for you to come on and help me like build it for 3 months or 6 months or like whatever it is, or maybe even longer. So that's probably like the first place that I would look. The second place that I would look would be in college campuses and universities. Go directly to the engineering department and find those kids. Students are awesome, awesome, awesome resources for, again, kind of free or cheap labor. And I was one of them who gave a lot of free and cheap labor when I was a student. And I learned a lot. So like, I would say like definitely hunt on those grounds. Almost every college has like an entrepreneurship center, or they have like maybe an engineering school or an engineering center. That's a great place to look for people who are interested in probably taking on some project work, some side work, etc. And then third, join some developer communities, similar to like the meetup we're in today. Joining some meetups that are like heavily like developer led, or like women who code, or any of those types of things. You can find people who like likely are taking on side project work, or who are who know someone who might be willing to take on some side project work. And that's probably a really great place also to find someone. But in general, like I see people usually like get stuck here, where they are approaching founders or trying to find co-founders too soon. As in like, hey, I have a great idea and I need a co-founder. That's probably not the time to like find a co-founder. You want to find like a technical co-founder, approach someone technical to help you build something after you've done most of like the idea research, customer discovery, etc. Because you want to approach them with like, hey, this is like a real thing and I would like you to be involved here. Personally poached. Nice. Yes, at a tech meetup. Yeah, that happens all the time. I was like, one of my first product management positions when I was trying to transition my career from finance to product management, I went to like a co-working space where there were all these like startups, and I hit up basically everybody in that space. And I was like, I want to teach here. Like, how can I do it? Like, what will you do for me? Like, I am not leaving until you like allow me to do something. And I met someone there who was starting a startup, and I became their product manager for like 3 or 4 months on a travel startup. And I learned how to build wireframes, and I learned how to do user stories, and I learned how to do a bunch of stuff, which I later turned into my portfolio to get a job. So like all helpful things, right? There are people out there like me who like just want to help and do stuff. So, or are using it for their own purposes. So yeah.
Actually, the cool thing now is that because everything is remote because of COVID, like your exposure is like literally, I mean, I was gonna say nationwide, but really worldwide. So like the tech communities that you can join now are just like exponential. So, you know, your talent pool grows so much. So definitely take advantage of that now before things start getting more in person again.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Anyone else? Questions, comments?
If there's not a queue, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this, Maya. This has been super helpful. Related or unrelated to the question you just answered, where you were talking about co-founders, is there some type of either local effort in metropolitan areas or national effort to help identify female founders, co-founders? Is that organized in some way?
Yeah, here's what I'll say about that. And that's a great question, Erin. I have been on a couple of like co-founder matching sites like founderdating.com or like I think fsuccess.com is like a founder matching thing. I haven't usually found them to be successful. And usually the reason is like, people don't usually find co-founders being matched up like dating sites, right? Like to be a co-founder in somebody's startup is usually like a very personal decision. It requires like a lot of time. It requires a lot of trust to be built. And for that reason, I see co-founders happen more organically than like inorganically, where like they're just matched because of like some similar interest. So that's the reason I usually steer people toward like join a community, right? Like really be a part of it, like meet the people there, like start to be involved so that like the people in that community are like, oh yeah, like Erin, like we know Erin, we trust Erin, we would definitely work with Erin again, like all that sort of stuff. And I think that that really helps just build like a layer of foundational trust between you and the person that you're looking to co-found with. On top of that, you can do like things like co-founder trials, where let's say you're doing like 3 months at a time or 6 months at a time, and you're kind of evaluating that person during that time. So you're not giving up like, all right, you're my co-founder because like we liked each other and now like you get half my equity or like whatever we may have decided on. I don't usually find that situation is helpful. So I always encourage like treat finding a co-founder like you are finding a like mate for life. Like you are finding somebody to marry for the next 10 years because they probably will be with you on that ride for the next 10 years if they are a good fit. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any great like, female founder like connect things like that. And I haven't usually seen a lot of traction happen from those types of sites.
If I can interject one more time here too, Erin, I don't know if you're necessarily looking for a tech co-founder, but I would say that people in tech aren't really like looking for that as an opportunity. It doesn't seem like a good opportunity for them in general. Like, either having a stable job or being an entrepreneur themselves are usually the routes that they want to take. And being a tech co-founder usually means that you are, not getting paid well and, taking equity. And so it's not like people are really like seeking out, or tech people aren't really seeking out those opportunities, but, and they might already, have another gig. So yeah, it's like was just mentioned so many times. I mean, like just going out and meeting people and building relationships with people and like letting them hear about your product. I can't like imagine that there would be like a site that tech people would go on to become like tech co-founders, because it really doesn't sound like a good idea to tech people unless they already are really, really excited about the product or the visionary, the person who is the idea person and who's going to be the entrepreneur. So yeah, that's my 2 cents about that.
I appreciate it, Brittany. And also thank you, Maya. That's really good intel. So I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me pivot into a slightly unrelated but related topic.
Of course, definitely related.
All right, well, I guess we're hitting that 8 o'clock hour on the dot. So I want to be respectful of everyone's evenings, but this was absolutely phenomenal, Maya. I am so inspired, as I always am, when interacting with you and your content. So you guys, if you haven't already, follow Maya on Twitter, find her on LinkedIn, you have her email. We will publish this recording on YouTube and send out, the key facts and takeaways here in our email newsletter. I hope you all enjoyed it. And thank you again, Maya. I hope everyone has a wonderful night.
Thank you all. Thanks, Jenna and Brittany.
Thanks so much. This is so great.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Thank you all. Take care.